Hey Hunters, Halozu here for a kind of different video. I'm here on mtgcardsmith.com, which I've used to create some cards. Uh, if you're wondering why this isn't the wizard class of D&D 5.5 or something else, let's just say that that's been a lot more difficult than anticipated. So yeah, haven't continued with that yet, so we're going to do this instead, just as a simple video that I can do while I'm still trying to figure out what the craze is to do with Wizard. Especially Transmutation, because I have no idea. I was not expecting it to be as difficult or crazy as it was, but, yeah. And it's more out of a extended period of time that's like, this is just sometimes it's hard to figure out what to do. Like Transmutation, it's just like, what do I do with this? Like, I just don't know. So it's taken a bit more time than anticipated. May not even be next week's video for Wednesday, but I don't know. So anyway, let's get started with this. So bit of context. This is for campaign D&D campaign I'm in. I've done this before, but this one is a slightly different one in terms of how they go. So basically, there was originally 8 characters, but 3 of them have sort of been, like, 3 players have kind of left, and then 1 joined in. But anyway, so but the idea I came up with for this, it's Tower of Trials, this is what I've called it, as that's the theme of the campaign, is this Tower of Trials we're trying to get through. But there are 6 player characters: Garuda, Ratchet, Luna, Nutmeg, Crixie, and Matthias. And I decided that since there was more than 5, it would be a cool idea to do a full 10-card cycle, which led to doing a tricolor cycle. But, of course, there's only 6 characters and 10 combinations. So I decided, okay, well, for one, split Luna into 2 cards because she has a split personality. So she gets 2 cards instead of 1. And then also, Ratchet would get... Ratchet, Matthias, and Crixie all have a... secondary character associated with them that shows up. So for Ratchet, that is Zircon. And yes, that is absolutely a Ratchet and Clank reference. The entire character is themed around that, by the way. So do keep that in mind. And then Crixie has Mr. Sparkles, while Matthias has Essex. So as a quick reference, Garuda is a Conquest Paladin. Ratchet is an Artillerist Artificer. Luna is a Peace Cleric. Nutmeg is an Arcane Archer fighter. Crixie is a Armorer Artificer. Still don't know why they made a second Artificer, but they did. And then Matthias is a Divination Wizard. And also, yes, that's an Asura. I know. I went with Kithkin because I'm like, I'm not going to add Asura as a creature type because this isn't Guild Wars. Like, the character is heavily based on the Asura, though. But anyway, and then also I decided to add the goddess of who made the tower, Meili, the god of adventure, goddess of adventure, but that didn't fit. And decided to make her a 5-color card so you can play all the allies in one deck. So, real quickly, we're actually going to start with this character and talk about her abilities and stuff. So, she has Indestructible in Ward 2, mostly as a way to be like, you're not removing this card, like every god before her. And for reference with the art, it is pulled from numerous sources. This is... And I don't know who made this. This is a character from Genshin Impact, I believe. So I don't know who made this, so I can't credit most of the artists. The only one I can credit is actually... there's only 4 I can credit. but 3 of them are me using Hero Forge, and 1 is Insomniac Games. This, don't know off the top of my head, so I didn't put it. But her abilities, she is cost WUBRG, because of course she costs WUBRG. Rogue Ally God, and yes, all 11 of these cards are allies. Just decided it'd be cool to have the ally stuff play in. But anyway, so one of the ideas for the gods is that they aren't always creatures, except when you call time. Some of them don't follow this, but for this I decided to bring back the idea from Theros and Amonkhet, where she's conditionally able to exist, so she can't attack or block unless you control 5 or more ally permanents. As for why it says creatures, if you didn't notice, there is a non-creature ally in the set, so that is ally permanence. And then also her third ability is cards with adventure cost 1 less to cast. That only exists purely for the sake of being a kind of cheeky reference to the fact that she's a goddess of adventure. So she cares about adventure spells. And as a reference to the ruling with that ability, it is intended to be if it works on both the spell, the instant or sorcery half, and the permanent half of the adventure. So it works on both parts. So then she has Rally ability, as of course Rally returns. Whenever melee or another ally enters the battlefield, scry 3, then draw a card. Just a simple scry ability, which actually ties in with one of the characters, actually. And then she has 4 generic mana, tap, create a 2/4 colorless ally creature token with Guardian 1. So, what is Guardian 1? That is a new keyword, which is intended to be an evergreen keyword, actually, that is very simple. This creature can block X additional creatures each combat, where X is the Guardian number. All the cards I made have only Guardian 1, so there's no Guardian 2 or more. But, though I did, in hindsight, think that maybe I should have added that to Mr. Sparkles, but I didn't. And then for WUBRG, you win the game if you control 10 or more other legendary ally permanents. This was just a cool final ability that's like, that's sort of like the ultimate, like, this melee is intended specifically for Commander, and is absolutely intended to be a deck where you're supposed to play the other 10. And if you have the other 10, or optionally including other allies from the past, then you get to win the game. Like, play them all. And she is a 4/8, because I decided that 5 mana 4/8 kind of fits. As for Rogue, I decided that, like, Rogue is the most typical adventure kind of class. So I just decided on adding Rogue just for the heck of it, because she's also kind of a sneaky, devious goddess sometimes, apparently. And this is not my campaign, by the way. I'm actually the player character behind Ratchet, so I'm not the DM, so this is my friend Rose's character. But that's Melee, the god of adventure. Up next, we're actually going to go over to Garuda, Ruthless Protector. So he's a Dragon Knight ally for 1 generic, a red, white, and black, so he's Mardu. He has Menace, Vigilance, Haste, and Guardian 1, so he gets to block an additional creature each combat. And this is actually the first card I designed Guardian for, where I decided, it'd be cool, like, he has to be blocked by 2 creatures. What if he could block 2 creatures as well? And I came up with the idea of making a keyword that was just, you can block X additional creatures each combat. So, thus, Guardian 1 was created, and he was the first card to implement it. And he's a 4/4 for 4, so doing good on the mana curve there. He also has a Rally ability, so whenever Garuda or another ally enters the battlefield, he gains +1/+1 until end of turn, so he comes down as a 5/5. In 5/5 Menace and Vigilance is a bit good. Though it does mean he is a bit better at attacking, because it's easier to trigger that on attacks, but whenever he attacks, he must be blocked if able, so yeah, that's actually a very weird ability to combine with Menace, but the idea was that he's going to attract your enemy's attention. Like, that is what he does. And if he attacks, this does mean that if he attacks and they only have one creature, he doesn't get blocked, as they cannot block him. But if your opponent has creatures out, they have to block him with 2. So it's not even like, oh, you can just chump block him. Nope, you got to chump him with 2 creatures. And then his final ability is actually a raid ability. I decided to toss that in just as, like, you know, I might as well have the keyword since it's an attack trigger. But beginning of your end step, deals 2 damage to any target if you attacked with a creature this turn. So if you attacked with him, let's say, then at the end of the turn, he does 2 damage to any target. So he's going to be hitting pretty hard no matter what. So he's more of an aggressive card, and he is in the most aggressive archetype, which I decided red-white would be an aggressive ally tribal deck. Red-black would kind of be... I don't remember what that was. I think, or no, that was instant damage. That was like a burn strategy. And then white-black is kind of more of an attrition deck, but... and he definitely kind of plays into that, where he's removing your opponent's creatures and locking up the board. And he's going to make sure your stuff gets through, or starts getting through. But, yeah, I'm definitely stacked with abilities, and I'll admit, like, all of them are kind of stacked, but that's kind of the point. Let's go next up to... Let's go to Crixie, actually. So, Crixie, the Suit Master. Blue, black, and red for 2/5, Kithkin pilot ally. She is an artificer, but I decided to go with pilot because that's more what she is mechanically. As an armorer, she pilots this special armor that she wears and has built called Mr. Sparkles. So, as a result, that's one of her abilities. So she has the prowess in Ward 2, Ward 2, but also another new keyword, Crewman X. So this is actually a second mechanic where it's... This one is deciduous, however, where any set where pilots and or vehicles exist, there can be crewmen, and crewman is just this creature can crew vehicles as if their power is X greater, where X is the number of the card, the crewman ability. So like crewman 1, it'd be 1 greater, crewman 3, it would be 3 greater. Crixie, however, has crewman X, and X is her current power for this card. So basically her ability just lets her double her power for the term in terms of crewing. So basically she starts off able to crew vehicles with crew 4 or greater, with crew 4 or less. But if her power is greater, then it just doubles and doubles and doubles. So like if you cast an instant or sorcery, then she crews a vehicle, she crews as if it was her power was 6. You can also tap her to add blue, black, or red. You can only spend this mana to cast artifact, instant, or sorcery spells. So this is just kind of there to be like, hey, here's a way to ramp and for her to help make stuff. Decided to add this just to be like, it makes it easier to get other cards out, like vehicles, while also helping her trigger prowess stuff. But whenever Crixie crews a vehicle, it gains prowess until end of turn, and if Crixie's power for crewing exceeds the vehicle's crew number, then the vehicle gets +X +X until end of turn, where X is the difference. So let's say you crewed a vehicle with crew 4, but you cast an instant or sorcery before, so her power is 3, which is doubled to 6 because of crewmen. So basically, the vehicle will get +2/+2 because her power for crewing, which is basically after crewman, just a fancy way of saying after the crewman ability is accounted for and doubles her power, that number is what it cares about. So basically it gets +2/+2 until end of turn. So it's kind of a complicated ability, but the idea is that because she can snowball and just doing crazy numbers with crew, she makes the vehicle very big in comparison when she does actually get to crew stuff. But anyway, so that's Crixie. Now let's look at Mr. Sparkles. So, Mr. Sparkles' living armor is 1 generic, a blue, red, and white, for a vehicle ally, meaning that he's not actually a creature. However, he becomes a creature, so that was the idea, that it's like he can have the ally creature type just because it kind of fit. But anyway, he has Vigilance, Ward 2, and Guardian 1. He has a crew of 4 base. So this was intentional, where Crixie can crew him off the bat because of her ability. So, and also at the end, Mr. Sparkles can be your commander. So he does get that ability. So he's not excluded. And it's just there, like, even if it wasn't actually if it was like a standard set, it would have that, just to be like, hey, the cycle is full. But anyway, whenever Mr. Sparkles attacks or blocks, he gains +X until end of turn, where X is the number of ally permanents you control. And whenever a creature crews Mr. Sparkles, untap them at the beginning of the next end step. So once again, we kind of see red-white being an ally tribal deck. Blue-white is kind of control-y / defensive. And then blue-red is an artifacts deck, so he's an artifact, so that matters. But the whole idea of him getting bigger the more allies you get when he attacks or blocks is kind of played up as a, hey, let's give you rewards for going wide with him and make him even more powerful as a vehicle. So you can do some absurd stuff with him and Crixie, which is kind of the point. Like, they're designed to specifically be good together and be synergistic, so that's why the crew number is exactly double Crixie's normal power. But anyway, let's now head over to Matthias, the Fate Weaver. So I'll admit, this is the card that I immediately knew what I was going to do with it, because it just made so much sense to do this sort of thing with him. But anyway, 2 white, blue, black for a human wizard ally. He's a 2/6, so he's more defensive than aggressive, which makes sense. He has Ward, pay 2 life. It's kind of play into the idea that he's a black card to some extent, and to kind of change up the ward costs, because I ended up putting a lot of ward in the set, but like, But his second ability is definitely kind of like a slam dunk flavor choice, where whenever you scry, surveil, or fate seal, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. So yes, he cares about scrying and surveilling and fate seal. If you don't remember that mechanic, don't worry. But anyway, it was just like, he's a divination wizard. Scry and surveil and even fate seal are like divination associated mechanics. So yeah, it's the perfect combination that he's a card that cares about that. But anyway, he has ways to trigger his own ability. So you can play white, blue, black to scry X, then draw a card, where X is the number of ally permanents you control. I misspelled that. and then that's +2, by the way. So if you only have him on the battlefield, then it's scry 3, because you count himself +2. So, and then you get to draw cards. So it's a simple ability, but it's like, digging through your library, looking for what you want, kind of playing into the long game, which is what he's supposed to do, while also slowly whittling away your opponent's life total and keeping you going. But then, for 1 generic, a white, blue, and black, and tapping him, you can Fate Seal 2. So basically, Fate Seal, you look at the top X cards of target opponent's library, then put any number of them on the bottom of their library, and the rest on top in any order. So basically, you scry your opponent's library and troll the heck out of them. Which is part of why I made it a bit harder to multi-trigger, to trigger a bunch. So it's not repeatable and it costs a bit more, just to keep it from being a very oppressive card. But I did decide to give Fate Seal because it kind of was like, maybe I should throw Fate Seal in as like a way to build into that ability and kind of pay off the fact that it's there. And also kind of play into the idea that he is supposed to be black aligned as well. So this is a more blue-black kind of thing, where the first one is more blue-white, especially with the idea that blue-white is ally control. So that kind of played into it as well. But, yeah. So what about his familiar? That did not go where I wanted it to. Essex, Seer's Familiar. Black, green, and blue for a 2/4 bird spirit ally. Spirit was just like a way to make it feel more like it's not just a normal bird, it's a special bird because it's his familiar, so it's a spirit. But anyway, it has flying, death touch, and lifelink. And at the beginning of your draw step, scry 2. So he is designed specifically to synergize more with Matthias. And you'll also notice, if you didn't already, all the characters in the set that are basically like a linked character will share a color pair. So for Crixie and Mr. Sparkles, it was blue-red. For Essex and Matthias, it's black-blue, or blue-black. So, but anyway, Essex also has 3 abilities that each cost black, green, and blue. So you have to pay Sultai for it. The first one is put a flying, death touch, or lifelink counter on target creature. So green-blue cares a lot about counters in this set, so that's why this is there. However, as for why these 3, I decided just to make it where he can give his counters to stuff, like his keywords to other creatures. But there was also a specific thing for death touch and lifelink, which will become apparent later, as it was 2 of the 5 missing keywords on another character. So I'll fully be able to reveal why these 2 show up here. But yeah, you can give stuff death touch and lifelink, which is pretty cool. Second one is return target land, instant, sorcery, or ally card from your graveyard to your hand, so you can return stuff, recur stuff from your graveyard, and green-black is kind of a graveyard-centered deck. And then the last ability is each player mills 2 cards. You gain 1 life for each creature card put into a graveyard this way. So it's kind of milling your opponents and slowly draining their resources while also keeping you going. So it's a simple card, but, it's effective at what it does. Has a lot of activated abilities, but I think, there's an extent to which it's like, this has some useful abilities, and one that I wanted just to complete the set and make the full 10 combination even deadlier, even though he's not actually linked to the other character he's supposed to synergize with, but you'll see in a moment. Don't do that. I want to stay to this. This is being weird. Okay. Anyway, next card we're going to look at is Nutmeg, Mystic Archer. So she's 2 black, red, and green for a bird archer ally. And she's a 4/6 with flying and first strike. She is intended to be deadly. And she has a ton of activated abilities, as I decided green-red would be kind of an activated ability ramp deck, where you ramp into creatures with powerful activated abilities and such. So, her first ability is 2 generic, black and red. She deals 3 damage to target opponent. Second ability is 1 generic, a red and a green. And she fights target creature you don't control. So she does actually trigger first strike with that. And then the last ability is just a green and a black. So you return target land from your graveyard to the battlefield. So she's able to do some graveyard shenanigans and just some general stuff. Then for 2 generic, 2 black, 2 red, and 2 green, she deals 5 damage to each opponent and each creature and planeswalker they control. So a big last ability where she's just blasting the entire battlefield with her mystical arrows. So, and the kind of flavor behind these is she's shooting projectiles that shoot magic out. So she's shooting mystical arrows that do all sorts of stuff and using a bit of magic. But yeah, simple character, straightforward, powerful abilities. So let's see. I guess we're going to Luna then. So we're actually going to start with Fragmented Mind. So the Luna cards, she is... this is one of the cards I did. So Halazu on Hero Forge. Had to do this character because the original art for her didn't want to use that because... yeah, it's something. So I made this to... And also it kind of better shows the contrast between the two sides, which I did exaggerate with this one being 1 generic white, black, and green. So she's Abzan, and both are green-white, but this one has black, the other has blue. For Human Fox Cleric Ally, so she's a fox girl, basically. Yeah, this character... The type line was hilarious, but yeah. Definitely pushing it with that one. But anyway. And she's a 5/4, actually. So she's a big card. But anyway, at the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 1 life. She also has Lifelink, Vigilance, and Ward, pay 2 life. The first 2 abilities are actually shared between... So the keywords are actually shared between the 2 cards, but the Ward ability is different between the 2. So this one has the black Ward ability. The other actually has the blue Ward ability. So it's Ward 2 generic rather than pay 2 life. But beginning of upkeep, you gain 1 life. Whenever you gain life, each opponent loses 1 life. So originally I had considered, oh, whenever you would gain life, each opponent loses that much life. Then I realized, wait, this is on a 5/4 lifelink. I am not adding that to this. So yeah, that was cut down to just 1 life, but it is still like she is going to slowly whittle your opponent down, even if she gets blocked. But anyway, she also has a ability for white, black, green. Return target creature or planeswalker from your graveyard to your hand. You gain 1 life. So just a simple recursion ability. Get stuff out of your graveyard. And it kind of plays into her clericiness. And as for the items, I decided to give her a spiritual weapon. That is the scythe, as she does use a scythe for a spiritual weapon. And also have like a flame that, as if she's about to blast someone with a radiant spell. Like Sacred Flame or something. But that is Luna, Fragmented Mind. And then we have Luna, Orphan of Memory. So 1 generic, a green, white, and blue for a 4/5 Human Fox Cleric Ally. with lifelink, vigilance, and ward 2. So very similar. She also has the same second ability of at the beginning of your upkeep, you gain 1 life. But her third ability is whenever you would gain life, you gain twice that amount of life instead, kind of playing into her more restorative aspect. And then her last ability, green, white, blue, put a shield counter on target creature, you gain 1 life. And as for the stuff, I decided to have the kind of active effect in her left hand rather than her right, and then the like kind of passive spell effect in the right hand instead of the left for this card, or rather in reverse technically, as this one I made first. But she also has like a shield popping up, which is kind of like she's using this ability, and also she has like some smoke that's like probably a healing spell, I'd say, is what I'd intended as, but like it can be anything, like a support spell. Not as aggressive as the other version. And I will say, like, in the character herself, the differences aren't as extreme with the split personalities, but I decided to play it up here because it just felt right and kind of let me design 2 cool cards where there is this... They have similarities that kind of say, you know, this is the same character, but here's 2 different abilities that are entirely different and opposite of each other, which actually makes sense with the color that they don't share, where they're both green-white, but that third color kind of changes how they are as a character, where this one is more pure defensive, the other is more aggressive, let's say. So we get to my character, and I'm actually going to save mine for last. But let's begin with Zircon, Living Weapon. 2 generic, a red, green, and white for a 6/6 construct ally with Reach, Menace, Vigilance, and Guardian 1. So once again, he actually has the Garuda combination of Menace, Vigilance, and Guardian 1. Though Zircon also has Reach because he's the Eldritch Cannon / the turret. Yeah, I decided to replace my turret with Mr. Zircon because I thought it was cool. I made my character as a joke, by the way. And of course, this is made by Insomniac Games. Don't know which specific artist is behind this, so I've just credited Insomniac Games as a nod to, like, that's what this character is based on. But anyway, Zircon's third ability, technically, because Guardian is second, technically. Whenever Zircon attacks or blocks, each other ally creature you control gains +1/+1 until end of turn. So, ironically, it's actually kind of the opposite of what Mr. Sparkles does, where Mr. Sparkles buffed himself for each ally you control. Zircon buffs other allies, partly because he's a 6/6 and does not need more power. He does not need extra power and toughness. He's good on his own. And then he has red, green, white. Zircon deals 3 damage to target creature. If the creature has flying or is an artifact or enchantment, destroy it instead. Then you gain 2 life. So basically, he pings a creature for 3, but he can actually outright destroy any flying creature, artifact creature, and or enchantment creature. So, like, if you were to say, like, play against stuff from Theros, then and there's like an enchantment creature on the battlefield, he can just straight up destroy it. Same with any dragon ever or other big flyers. And he can also outright destroy any, like, artifact creatures, just as a way of kind of showing the green side where that's factored in. Because green likes destroying those things, so he actually destroys them if he damages them. And then the life gain is just like, it's there because green-white is about life gain, partly because Luna was 2 of the 3, so he has a life gain ability. And the damage, it's like, you know, it's red. Instant damage is always a good choice. And of course, he also has the green-red activated abilities kind of deal, though he doesn't have as many as some cards. Like, Essex ironically has more, but yeah, yeah, so then, last but not least, we have Ratchet, the Weaponsmith. A green, blue, and red for a 3/4 human artificer ally. Officially, the character is actually a half-elf, but human elf artificer ally did not fit on the type line. So, yeah, didn't pan out in the end, so I just removed the elf part because human was my original intention, but had to make him a half elf for reasons. But anyway, his first ability is to tap, add green blue, blue red, or red green. Spend this only on activated abilities, artifact, as well as artifact or creature spells. Kind of ran out of space for this one, but yeah, it's definitely something where it's a simple mana generation ability, and it's like, okay, well, kind of odd that a non-druid gets it, but he does specifically trigger artifacts, can spend it on artifacts and activated abilities, which actually ties into his character. So he has artifact synergy, right? Well, that's actually it. The rest are all counter abilities, as green-blue is sort of his main focus. But anyway, so for red-green and hybrid and green-blue hybrid, put a +1/1 or shield counter on target creature you control. So all these abilities put counters on target creature you control. So the first one is just generic teamer with both hybrids. So you can do green-green, red-blue, red-green, or green-blue. Like, just about any combination of this, actually. And you will also notice all these abilities can trigger these. So you can tap him to activate one of his abilities. But anyway, so the first one, shield, +1/1 or shield. These are the most generic ones, so doesn't require any specific color. But for a blue or red into green, put a trample or vigilance counter. So trample and vigilance are two keywords that show up in green. Could have also put reach or death touch, but death touch and trample together, as well as with first strike, is hilariously overpowered. So did not put that. While vigilance was it is mainly in white, but it does show up in green, and it fit a lot better than reach as well, because there's an ability to get flying. So speaking of which, for a red or green and a blue, you can put a flying or hexproof counter on something. So you get the two blue keywords. So flying, hexproof, only things blue can do, really. And then for a green or blue and a red, put a first strike or menace counter on target creature you control. So the two red keywords. So as a side note, you will notice that there are 5 keywords missing. So reach wasn't added because flying is here, so it's pointless with it. Then with death touch, it was I decided that it's way too powerful to put on the same card as something that gives trample or first strike. So it was decided that he's not going to give death touch. Lifelink, meanwhile, Lifelink doesn't show up because it's in white and black. The two colors Ratchet is not. So yeah, doesn't have that. And then the other two he's missing are Indestructible and Double Strike, which are just a bit too powerful to put on, especially when you consider that they just would kind of overshadow some of the other stuff. And Indestructible is also more of a white-black keyword, though green is also a color that gets plenty of Indestructible, but I decided not to allow it. because it'd be a bit too powerful. And then Double Strike is just an upgrade to First Strike, so I decided, nah, not going to add it. First Strike is more balanced for the card as a whole, so he doesn't get to add it. And you might be wondering, so he doesn't really care about artifacts, but he's a weaponsmith. So the idea I ended up coming up with is that he creates gizmos that gives people counters. And like for Trample, First Strike, and Menace in particular, and +1 counters, he's like giving characters enhanced weapons to use to fight with and improve their abilities in combat, which I'm actually kind of happy with that design, where it's like, hey, he's giving people weapons that make them more powerful. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. It was kind of fun to make this, even if it was like kind of a cop-out video where I'm like, yeah, I wasn't able to get the wizard for 5.5 done in time, so yeah, but hey, you know, this was a video at least. So hope you all enjoyed it, and without further ado, see y'all next time. Halo Zoo out.